When we hear the phrase slow living, we often imagine beautifully curated routines. Sipping herbal tea by the window, journaling at the sunrise, or strolling through nature without a care in the world. It paints a picture of peace, rhythm, and simplicity. And while these visuals are comforting and true in many ways, there's a deeper layer to slow living that often goes unnoticed. It's not just about adding more mindful moments or stacking calming rituals into our schedules. True slow living also requires us to release, to let go, to actively quit the habits, patterns, and expectations that keep us trapped in a cycle of hustle and noise. It's about simplifying not just our external world, but also the inner dialogue, the need to constantly be doing, achieving, and progressing. So in today's video, I want to gently share 5 things I've quit in my personal journey toward a slower, quieter, and more intentional life. I used to wake up and immediately start. My feet hadn't even touched the floor before my mind launched into a to-do list. Check emails, reply to messages, get ready fast, eat fast, and move fast. My mornings felt like a race, and most days I lost. But I began to realize the way I start my day sets the tone for everything that follows. If I begin with chaos, I carry that energy with me. But if I begin with slowness, with softness, with care, everything shifts. So I let go of rushing in the mornings. Now, I wake up just a little earlier, not to do more, but to do less. I make my bed. I sit quietly for a few minutes before reaching for my phone. I stretch. Sometimes I journal. Sometimes I just sip tea in the silence. I allow myself to move through my mornings slowly. I give myself permission to be a human being and not a machine. This small shift, this unlearning of urgency, has brought me more peace than I can describe. It's not perfect, and some mornings are still chaotic, but even then, I return to slowness when I can. For the longest time, a walk for me wasn't just a walk, it was an opportunity to consume. Whether it was a podcast, an audiobook, or a playlist, I'd pop in my AirPods before heading out the door, a default habit I barely questioned. I told myself I was multitasking, that I was making the most of my time, that I was staying informed, productive, or entertained. But over time, I started noticing something. I was missing the world around me. I wasn't hearing the crunch of leaves underfoot or the way the birds sang to one another in the early mornings. I wasn't catching the distant laughter from the playground or the rustling wind through trees. I had unknowingly shut myself off from the very experience I had stepped outside to enjoy. So now, I've started leaving my AirPods at home. Not always, but often. And it has become one of the most grounding rituals. These quiet walks, where I simply exist in the present moment, have become a way to reintroduce myself to the world around me. They remind me that I'm not separate from life, but a part of it. They remind me to listen, not just to music or ideas, but to the soft rhythm of life unfolding in real time. This one was harder than I thought it would be. I used to look forward to meals as a time to zone out. I'd sit down with a plate of food and immediately turn on a show. Something comforting, something familiar. It became a habit, a reward, a way to wind down after a long day. But slowly, this habit took away the sacredness of eating. I stopped tasting my food. I stopped feeling full, physically and emotionally. Meals became just another moment to be distracted. So I stopped watching while eating. It started with just a breakfast, a quiet moment at the table with a warm cup of tea in my hand, the sunlight slipping through the window. I noticed how different my day felt when it began with stillness rather than stimulation. I began savoring my meals, the colors, the texture, the warmth. Now, more often than not, I eat without screens. Sometimes I listen to gentle music, sometimes I just sit in the silence. It may seem very small, but this change has transformed the way I relate to nourishment, not just as food, but as a moment of care, attention, and presence. We live in a culture that glorifies multitasking. Doing it all has become a badge of honor, a proof that we're keeping up, that we're efficient, that we're productive. But in my own life, multitasking became a source of constant noise. I try to answer emails while eating lunch, fold laundry while on a call, write content with 5 tabs open and music blaring in the background. My brain never had a chance to rest. And despite of being busy, I was often left feeling unfulfilled, scattered, and exhausted. So I began to quit multitasking, gently and gradually. Instead of doing 3 things halfway, I now try to do one thing fully. I light a candle before writing. I sit down with my tea and just drink it. I fold laundry while listening to audiobooks. I give my full attention to conversations. I move through tasks with presence and not pressure. What surprised me the most was that this shift didn't make me less productive. It actually made me more focused, more creative, and more content. For much of my life, I felt the need to justify everything I did. If I read a book, it had to be for learning or self improvement. If I took a break, it had to recharge me so that I could work harder. If I created something, it had to be shared, validated, praised. But I've been slowly unlearning this mindset, and it has been one of the most freeing parts of my slow living journey. Now, I do things just because they feel good, just because they make me smile. I read novels that aren't teaching me anything practical. I paint without sharing it. I go for a walk with no destination in my head. I take naps on a sunny afternoon, and I sit on my rooftop and watch the clouds drift by. These moments, the ones without outcomes or objectives, have become the most sacred. They remind me that life isn't a checklist, that my worth isn't measured by my productivity, that joy and rest are not luxuries, they're essential. And ironically, allowing myself to rest, to create for the sake of creating, to exist without performing, has made me more inspired, more energized, and more grounded when I do return to work. Slow living isn't a destination. It's not something we arrive at with perfect routines or beautifully organized spaces. It's a choice we make, moment by moment. And often, that begins not with adding more, but with letting go. Letting go of the noise, of expectations, of autopilot habits that keep us disconnected from ourselves. So if you're on your own journey to a quieter, more intentional life, know that it doesn't have to be dramatic or aesthetic or perfect, because small changes matter. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. If you're also exploring slow living, I'd love to hear what you have quit to make space for more peace. Let's gently inspire each other. Until next time, take a deep breath and soften your shoulders.